Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for our first PAVE Fireside Chat, Home for the Holidays. Please join me in welcoming our host for tonight, Roya Sullivan. Roya joined Harlequin Design New York in March of 2020 and was named Vice President of Projects and Client Services. She was the National Director of Window Presentation at Macy's from 2014 to 2020. Prior to her time at Macy's, she was the Visual Design Director at Bloomingdale's. Roya attended Corcoran School of Art for her Bachelor of Arts and received her Master of Fine Arts from the Pratt Institute. She has been the recipient of several prestigious industry awards from Clio, Women in Design 2018 winner, Design Retail, and Windows Wear, and has been featured in publications such as the New York Times, USA Today, Entrepreneur, Psychology Today, A1 Retail, and more. Roya was born in Iran and grew up in Germany and later Connecticut. She now lives in New York City with her husband and 2 sons. At the conclusion of this evening's chat, we will host a live Q&A in which we will invite you to turn on your cameras and join the conversation. There will also be an optional additional 20 minutes after the chat where we invite everyone to turn on their cameras and raise a glass and toast to the creativity and resilience of our industry. Now, without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Roya.
I have a lovely elf today. He's going to peek in for a second. That's my older son, Oscar. So he's going to help me with my camera moves because I have none. So anyway, I just wanted to welcome you to the Sullivan home. We have lived in New York City. My husband and I have lived in New York for over 30 years. We met when I went to Pratt for when I was at grad school. And he's an artist as well. And we sort of just knew that we were going to grow and, grow our careers here, have our sort of roots set in New York, because we always knew that as artists, this is the place to be. So about 15 years ago, we moved here to Tribeca downtown, actually 16 years ago. This apartment, it's a loft that was basically a cheese factory at some point, and it was a refrigerator building. However, in the 80s, it was redone. We didn't live here then, but we came here right after 9/11. And we bought the space, and it was actually an open space and raw. And of course, being 2 artists, we redid the entire apartment. I'm standing in the kitchen. It's basically an open space with the living, dining, office in the front, and then the bedrooms in the back. But the reason I mention all of that is because, as you know, anyone who's ever done a renovation knows that renovations always take much, much longer. And so we started this renovation with 2 little kids, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old in this apartment. We had no kitchen. We had a half a bathroom. And it was taking months and months and months. This room was completely raw. And it was Christmas Eve when I realized that we really didn't even have, a place to sit or do anything for our kids. And you know how when your kids are little, Oscar, as you recall, Christmas is so important and so magical. So we, decided to kick out all the workers out of the apartment, and sort of with a microwave and a, stovetop, created this dinner. And then we decided, we couldn't really get a Christmas tree because all our Christmas ornaments are away. So I went to Urban Outfitters, and I bought this tinsel tree that you see here. And my cameraman is going to bring it forward and kind of show you. So, the kids were little, and we didn't have any ornaments. Everything was in the storage. And so we began by drawing up ornaments like this. And this became our tradition that every year we would draw up ornaments on these flashcards. And I think you can tell that some of these, they were into Captain Underpants and stuff like that. SpongeBob was another one. My husband drew this one. I thought that was pretty funny. But anyway, so I guess the point I'm making is this became a tradition in our household, and that's what, you know, Christmas is really all about, is these traditions and these memories that you create for your family, and how that all comes together every year is really part of it. So when I was little, and I think we were talking about this earlier with the PAVE team, one of my favorite memories was when my mom baked this cake for Christmas. And the reason that was a really special moment is because my mom is a wonderful cook. She's the best cook I know, as far as I know, anywhere in the world. But she's not a baker, and I'm exactly the same as my mom. I think those of you who bake know that baking is actually a science. You have to measure everything, and it has to be just right, and things have to rise. I mean, one of my favorite shows is the British Baking. What is the actual name? Oh, the Great British Bake Off. So anyway, so this cake was amazing, and we thought she made it from scratch, and it was amazing. But later on in life, it comes to fruition that the cake isn't actually at all a sort of from scratch situation. It's actually a cake that she got and did from a nice box that included a Jell-O as well, Jell-O pudding. So I thought I would share this with you, because actually, if you're not a baker and you're not someone that does this, this will really make you a superstar, creating this cake, baking it, and bringing it to a party, because people will think you made it from scratch. So it's quick. I'm going to show you how to do it, and then we'll go on and talk about some table setting ideas. And then we'll move over by my Christmas tree, and we'll talk about inspiration. And we have a special guest today that's a surprise, and we're going to bring him on in a little bit. So I thought we'd show you the cake. Don't worry about trying to get all this down. It's not that complicated. It'll be in the chat, the recipe, so you guys can go ahead and just pay attention, and then we will share the recipe with you. So you basically start with a devil's food cake, Duncan Hines. You put that in your mixing bowl. So that's your first ingredient. Then you put in your Jell-O pudding. Because really the whole thing is just chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. And my mom being German, you know, the German cake is always, you know, the German chocolate cake is really famous, and it also includes cherries, but this doesn't. So here then we add 4 eggs. So a big mess. And it's super easy. You guys don't even need to get a mixer. It all just kind of blends together in this. You add a cup of water. I love these little cups. They're Christmas cups. I'd like to take them out for Christmas. I thought it was funny to have them tonight. Let's see, a half a cup of vegetable oil. It'll be in the recipe. Don't worry about it, guys. And then you can put in a lot of chocolate chips, just because you need to add more chocolate. Her secret, anyone who's German knows that secret to everything is sour cream. So you want to just throw in a cup of sour cream in there. And that's all you're doing, is you're just going to mix the whole thing. You don't need a mixer. It's just simple as getting all the ingredients stirred. And then you also want to just turn on your oven and have it obviously preheat at 350. You would have already done this. As you know, I'm not a real baker, but you know, this is my only trick that I do have, is this cake. So it's just going to look very much like a mixed cake. And the fun part is you'll use this bundt, you know, because you like that shape. You want to have that shape, and you just go ahead and pour it all in. Quite mix. Okay. But you get the idea, guys. So this will go in the oven. We'll get it nice and even. And you want to make sure for sure to butter your pan, because you don't want anything to stick. And you'll stick this in the oven for 50 minutes. And just like that, magic happens. And your cake is ready. So the cake looks pretty plain. You definitely want to dress it up a little bit. And so there's a sauce that goes with the cake. Basically, the sauce is very simple. It's just a cup of chocolate, some cream, and a little bit of vanilla extract. And you just melt the chocolate with a double pot so you don't burn your chocolate, because you know chocolate can burn very quickly. And then we'll take these off so you guys can see. This is where the magic happens. So you just kind of pour your sauce on, and then voila, you have your chocolate cake. You want this to actually cool off a little bit because you know you want that glaze to look kind of shiny and pretty. And then once you're done, in honor of tonight's snowstorm, and I'll just do it, it'll melt on this, but you'll definitely want to do some powdered sugar to make it very Christmassy and very pretty. So there you go. This is the magic of high and low, bringing in a cake that's, you know, from a box, but then making it look special, a lot like a visual merchandising event where you have to work with some sort of budget. So you'll be able to put together something like this, but look like $1 million when you walk into a party. So now we're gonna walk over to this side and talk about maybe dressing up your tables a little bit when you have your holiday dinner. You know, living in New York City is, you know, one of the things that I really do love having and participating in and going to our dinner parties, because I find them so, you know, the conversation wonderful, and just getting to know people that way. And unfortunately, with what's going on today, we're not able to, you know, mix families or mix different households. But at least these are some ideas that you can maybe do with your immediate family within your bubble. But then when things, you know, do eventually get to normal, you'll be able to set up your tables again, and once again have the wonderful dinner parties that you might have had. But one of the things that and you guys, anyone who knows me knows that I don't really like a lot of frou-frous and a lot of decoration. So for a dinner party for Christmas, I like to maybe use lights as something to uplift the table setting. And one of the things I like doing is, this is just a simple little trick. I like these rice lights that everybody uses, and I like using them underneath my tablecloth. So it's just simply undoing them. And, you know, I did have a little time to undo this, like your Christmas lights. You basically run them on your table, use a Scotch tape to tape it down, not on top of your wood because you may damage it, but on the side, and then run it linear along the table, and then you'll repeat this over and over underneath your tablecloth. And once you're done with that, what I love about this is it kind of creates a fun magic trick. And sometimes I actually don't even turn it on till the guests have arrived, or like dinner set already on the table. So after you do this, you'll have your table set, and you know, you'll serve your dinner and have everyone sit down, and then you press a button, and then you'll have this pretty table that creates a little magic. There's not enough, you know, space in an apartment to have tons of, you know, greenery on your table, but this is just something that's just underneath your tablecloth, and it's kind of fun. And then in my dining room, every year I add the peace sign. Somebody made that sign for me, and every year I bring it out and I try to find a home for it. Usually it actually faces out into the street, so you can see it walking up my block, but unfortunately our building is under construction. So this year we have scaffolding and it's covered. So this year I'd set it up, put it in the dining room. Another thing that I really like doing during, setting a table is I'm not really a big fan of a lot of color on my table. That's why I just have tablecloth that's white. My linen is always white, but I like to dress up the table, like I said, with light, and then of course with your salad plate. And I love salad plates that you can find at thrift stores, like this one I found in a thrift store. They're fish plates, and they're old. And then I like these too, the balloons, there's different ones. So if you just have a plain plate, it could be your china from your mom, like mine is, or a grandmother, and then you just add your plates. And I don't like things matchy either, so I like stuff that could be different. This was a wedding gift, John tucked their drawings, their plates. They're a little too big, but it's kind of nice to layer. And every year for Christmas, we definitely use the Christmas crackers because, those are fun. You pop them, you have a hat, people, enjoy having them. And, it just adds a little color, but not too much. And then I showed you some nice, various different napkin rings. I don't really, again, like too much color, too much stuff, too much frou-frou. So this is kind of how I dress up my dining room table. So now I think that we're ready to show you a video. This video I wanted to share, it's important because this year, again, like I keep saying, it's a different year. It's not like it's in the years past where all our friends have come to New York and enjoyed all the windows that have been around the city. It's actually just something that I know many of us do, like I said, creating memories for our kids and our families coming to the city and seeing the windows and just not able to travel as much. So we helped Macy's create these windows for this year's holiday, and we have a video that we're going to share with you so you guys kind of get to see what it looked like, and it's currently up, and I think they're going to play our video. So I didn't want to talk over that because I think it's just so enjoyable to watch it and just see the people's reaction. As you see, it's very relevant to what's going on in this sort of world today. So my special guest today is Scott Devine. He is the Vice President of Visual Merchandising at Macy's. He's the mastermind behind these windows, and he's agreed to come on and say hello to all of us. Hello, Scott, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello, cheers, great to see you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, good. I have to get my drink. So thank you for coming on. And I think it was so nice to share that video. And, I know when you look at it, you have the same feelings I do. Just tell us a little bit about where this came from for you back in March, kind of when you were thinking about it.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for inviting me here. You're doing an awesome job. I mean, quite impressed with your hosting skills. And we're clearly of the same generation because I grew up with that same chocolate bundt cake with the drizzle icing on it and the powdered sugar. So it brought back a lot of memories. My mother, unlike your mother, was not a great cook, but she could make a great box cake. So I really enjoyed that. I was laughing the entire time. And again, thank you for sharing our windows, and I'm super proud of them. And thank you for your partnership on them. But, this year was, like we all know, crazy. And, sitting here at my dining room table where I'm sitting now, where I've been for the past year, practically since March, there was a lot going on. And the little moments that I could get outside and go for walks, and see my neighbors or see what was going on. And it was even rare to see people. So many people were inside. But at 7 o'clock every night, the city would applaud and clap and bang pots for first responders. And every day that meant so much to me to participate in that, to hear that for members of my own family, as just for the city. And it just felt so good because it was such a dark time and an unknown time. And also when I would walk around, I would see kids were putting up the rainbows was the other thing that you'd see around the city and their windows. And every day there'd be more and more in my neighborhood. And I was just like, those were the things that first inspired me. And I remember talking to you because we were both like constantly talking to each other, as we did with all of our friends at the time. Just like I said, sitting here at my dining room table and we were working on health and safety signing. Honestly, was my big project during that time. Everyone was furloughed. To get our stores up and running. But I was inspired by just the spirit of, New Yorkers around the city and in my neighborhood. And they're, finding those little things to keep us going during that time, and thanking those first responders was the initial inspiration for those windows.
They were. And what's so interesting is kind of it evolved from that too. It was those two initial thoughts. And then it was like, I think, with all of the political activities that started to take place, you kind of wanted to bring that in too. And I thought that was really interesting because that same rainbow window has even double meaning, for you.
So as the year progressed, as we know, things even changed even more. And, there was the George Floyd incident, and then the whole Black Lives Matter campaign. And, we actually worked on another window right after that where our stores, we have stores around the entire country and in major cities, and they were definitely at the time impacted by that civil unrest. And, we worked on creating these beautiful hands for New York City and a rainbow of colors of skin tones that we put in the windows, art that we covered all of our buildings around the country in. So that was a really, powerful project to work on. And, there's sometimes things we get to do are fun and beautiful and creative, and also sometimes they have a message and a real meaning, and that's is really important to me. So like you said, when the whole rainbow obviously has other meanings of equality, and that window, and you showed it in the little video that says, "I believe in love, I believe in Santa, and I believe in equality," is actually my favorite window because that rainbow does represent so much. And those clapping hands were in a rainbow of skin tones. And to have that message in our holiday windows that so many people get to see was just, really a strong statement and something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, it was. I'm really glad that you allowed us to help you, kind of formalize what you were thinking, your ideas into actuality. That's kind of what makes me really excited. We were talking about earlier when you and I were just talking about, growing up in New York and what does it, look like to someone that as a kid, because you said as a child, you came to New York and looked at the windows. And I think that was kind of window number one, where it was an homage to, the city, right? And again, not only thanking everyone that is a first responder, but just the entire city, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So like I said, the whole idea kept progressing, and, that first window is a New York City scene, and it's a bunch of marquees that we're so familiar with, but they all say thank you in many languages. And that was part of just being inclusive and the diversity of the city, but also thanking the city for their resilience, as well as, the you and I who didn't leave the city. I'm not knocking the people who did. I understand why people did leave the city. But for those of us who stayed, and, you know, the Jerry Seinfeld article about New York isn't dead. And, you know, it just meant so much to New Yorkers. And, you know, we've received so many letters at Macy's from the windows this year of New Yorkers thanking us for thanking New Yorkers. And it means so much to them. And, you know, it is a strong, resilient city. Macy's is a strong, resilient brand. And, you know, we're part of the fabric of the city, as well as cities around the country. We worked on windows in not just New York City together. We have the same message of thanking the cities in Chicago, San Francisco, Philadelphia, Boston, DC. We have the same message because all of our, you know, stores are part of those communities, and the whole country was really impacted. So it is more than just the first responders. But of course, we do thank them very much.
Absolutely. So let's just change gears a little bit. You know, I always like to ask, what's your favorite holiday memory? Because when we actually do start brainstorming about Christmas each year, that's kind of where we always start from. And, you know, mine was always, you know, I think one of the windows I had done in the beginning when I first started was space, and it had, you know, Santa kind of going across the moon. And it was when I was little, I constantly would ask my mom, where's Santa? Why can't, you know, and she would just say, just look up, look at the moon. You'll eventually see him go by. And of course I would spend hours looking and I could never find Santa. And then, you know, as soon as I would turn and ask my mom, where was it? You know, why isn't he coming? And she would say, oh, he must be on the other side, you know, so, and then it would be bedtime. So tell me, what's your favorite memory of when you were a child?
So I was a lucky little boy that I grew up right outside of New York City in New Jersey. And, you know, my parents were New Yorkers, and we came to New York all the time. And I know it sounds a little like corny or cliche, but it really was coming in to see the tree at Rockefeller Center and the windows and that tradition. And, you know, I didn't even ever think about windows as being a job or visual, or even, you know, understanding that that was a thing. But, you know, like any little kid coming into the city and the magic of it. But a similar story, though, I do remember driving, and you could see the city skyline as you came in under the Lincoln Tunnel. And we would listen to, they'd hear the radio of Santa was flying over, and, you know, you'd hear where he was traveling. And my grandparents lived in the city, so we were coming home, and there was a blinking red light in the sky, and I'm sure it was a telephone pole or whatever it was. And, you know, my parents told me it was Santa, and that was, we had to get home. And, you know, just those memories of coming in and out of the city and visiting the windows and the tree, for sure. You know, yeah. And now I'm a lucky old man to get to do it as my career, and, you know, to be part of this and part of Macy's, which is such an iconic brand, but part of this industry that, you know, I didn't know that this was an industry. And my degree is in, you know, urban design, landscape architecture. I love nature, I love cities, but I fell into this and I fell in love with it. And, you know, my parents were like, what are you doing? They never heard of it either. And they had, you know, sent me to school for architecture, and, you know, it evolved into this. And, you know, I love what I do. I'm so proud of what I do. And, you know, to work with talented people like you and collaborate and share and just have fun is just awesome.
Oh, well, just one more question. I know we talked about your inspiration this year, because I think after you leave us, I'm going to talk about a little bit about inspiration. But tell me where you find your inspiration. I know it's hard today because we are definitely not as able to, you know, visit or travel. I know you and I have traveled together to some exotic places. But tell me a little bit about where you find your inspiration, you know, when things were normal, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's a hard question to answer because I find inspiration everywhere. Like I said, my degree is in landscape architecture and environmental design, so I love the vibrancy of cities and planning, and from old cities to new cities, and studying that as well as nature. And I find inspiration in both of those things, and how things are juxtaposed against each other sometimes. So that, you know, but it can be in art and museums and movies, but I do like that juxtaposition of two things. So, you know, I'm still very passionate about urban design and how it's changing, and the skyline of New York is changing, and the debates over, what the skyline has become, and the tall, thin, skinny buildings, and all those different things. But then there's still Central Park in the middle of it that is like so beautiful, and an oasis in the middle of the city. So I find it in a lot of places, but I like things that are competing against each other and make you think differently.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then I just say one thing about our trip to India. I think that we should talk about a little bit because,
Absolutely. Talk about things juxtaposing against each other.
I think just having that, the way we were exposed to the culture and not only architecture, but the people, the colors, the sense of smell, and I mean, all your senses are awakened when you're in India. So I found that after we came back from that trip, the windows that we did, that one, it was sort of a light show. It was an homage to a lot of lights and various different techniques of that. And I think that really was inspired by India, because we want, it's just, things are so vibrant in India. And I wanted to take your take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like an awesome experience that you and I were able to, travel, to India, for work. We were part of the Asia, I'm sorry, I don't even remember the exact Asia Expo. And we presented and we talked about the history of Macy's brand and the windows. But to get that experience that, it is a different world, and just their culture and how they welcomed us, but also were curious about us. And, because obviously we stood out as different, but the vibrancy of that city, and like you said, or that country, sorry, from the colors and the smells and the food, and it was just awesome to experience. And I think it did, those things in life do inspire you and make you think again, you'll never be the same. So opportunities to travel even around the country or around the world, or even in your own backyard, you can just, if you're curious enough, you'll find things that you'll hold in your head and take as a cue or a little trigger to inspire something else. And like you said, then we came back and did amazing windows that weren't really about India by any means, but they definitely, from the experience, the color, the vibrancy, and just the energy, absolutely. It was an awesome experience. We should do it again.
We will. I mean, I feel like there's a sense of optimism that's coming up. And so just one more question. I think it's a good to talk about, because we know there's a lot of students on this today. And I know that you guys are looking for, inspiration and what's next. And I guess I'll ask you, because you have so much experience in this particular business, how do you see the future of visual merchandising as things start to open up? And, here we are, a year of very difficult backdrop, but yet windows were done, and some really amazing things like the hands that you did came through. So, as much as we think, oh, it's changing, it's different, it's less, but it's still happening. So, what words of wisdom do you have for our students?
I really think, this has been a year that has, changed so much, but it's also inspired a lot of action and, introspection and being vocal at the same time, and challenging different things and thinking different ways. So that in itself is a call for change and doing things differently. And clearly retail has changed, with closing stores and the online and the convenience of curbside and fulfillment and all the things that are happening in a physical store that have become so much more important right now. And that's probably not going to change. But what I think it does is that it creates, that importance of what that store experience is. Because when a customer is going to shop online, they do want convenience, and convenience is very important, even at a store experience. But if they're going to make the time and, plan to come into a store, they're doing it because they want that experience. And that's what visual merchandising and store design does. It truly creates that theater, that stage. And I think even more so now than ever, there's going to be a need for it coming out of this, because we've been deprived of it. And again, shopping online is super convenient and we all do it, but we all know what it is to be in a store, to touch things and experience things. And it's, I think, going to give us all an opportunity to be that much more creative and find ways to, inspire that customer when they're there and have them, whether it's even adding new businesses and new experiences to, have different reasons to come into the store. But once they're there, it's just such an opportunity to capture their imagination. And I think it's going to be awesome for all of us. And there's going to be so many creative things that I look forward to seeing what, my own team comes up with, what others come up with. I love seeing and being curious about what other retailers are doing. And I look forward to the students that are on the call with us and, what they're going to bring to the table in the future. And I'm really excited about coming out of this and what that brings.
Thank you, Scott. I think we're going to say goodbye to you now. And
I'm going to stay on and listen to you. I'm so impressed with your hosting skills.
Well, you can definitely stay on. I know that I twisted your arm an hour ago to do this, so everybody know this, that sometimes you have to pull a favor in, especially an hour before you go on. You couldn't say no to us.
But seriously, thank you for having me. You've done a great job, and I look forward to the rest of your hosting that you're going to be presenting.
Thank you. So as Scott said, I think with what's happening today in the world, we are such creative people and design people and visual people, and we're all starving for more visual inspiration out there. Before COVID, obviously, I know many of you follow me on Instagram, and Scott likes to make fun of me because I put all kinds of stuff on it. But I obviously loved going to art galleries, museums. I get a lot of inspiration from 3D art, outdoor sculptures, anything that has massive scale. I think, as Scott was saying, people are looking for experiences. They're looking for disruptive moments. So, a lot of this sort of Instagram moments, came from outdoor sculpture and how that looked like, and the scale of that compared to a human being. That's why people are always taking selfies right next to one. So that's where I was going. I was going to a lot of galleries, a lot of I am the only person on earth that has a landline. Of course, it had to go off right this second. My assistant's getting that. So anyway, as I'm seeing that, the museums are opening and I'm going back out and seeing more stuff, what I did spend a lot of time on during the lockdown and sort of being home was back to reading again. I have a few books I'll share now, but then also, like Scott said, we were all going on walks every day. For New York City, as you know, it was shut down. First, it was the epicenter, obviously, but we listened, we did what we were told, and we brought the numbers down. But we were allowed 1 hour a day, 2 hours, up to 2 hours to walk outside, not together as a family. Here's Christmas, we want to all be together today. But when this was happening in March and April, we were allowed to go outside and walk, but not walk down the sidewalk together because you just couldn't be next to one another. So my family would go out separately, each of us, and we would do these lonely walks, and I'll come back with a lot of photos from outdoor art that people were expressing themselves. And I think that was terrific. I have one still on my Instagram that it's around Lori's side that says, "I miss old New York." And I think it was put there before because something was being gentrified on Orchard Street and somebody didn't like it. And then it became kind of a symbol of what was happening at the time. But there was inspiration there. I know at the time I was doing some of these talks and people were asking me, what do you think, you know, people should work on? And I was like, outdoors, outdoors. You're standing in lines. You are waiting to get in. I mean, at the time we were standing in line to get into Whole Foods and all of our food services because they wouldn't allow a lot of people in the store. So everything was outside. You would stand in line. And as you're doing that, looking at your phone, you're looking at, you know, your surroundings. So outdoor art became very important. And I think that's what Scott was talking about when we worked on the hand project, the Love Hand, Love New York project. You know, we collaborated with someone, Tracy Woods, that I went to grad school at Pratt, and she created art that spoke to what Scott wanted to touch on. And so again, she was inspired, Scott was inspired, I was inspired by outdoor art. And you know, and not only Macy's but our other brands. You know, we work at Harlequin with really high-end brands that are sort of, you know, weren't sure where to go as stores were closing, being looted, but there was always a sense of positivity out there in visual merchandising and the group that works in that world. I think that's something that has always been a pleasant surprise for me and all my colleagues, whether at, you know, luxury brands or at big box, it doesn't matter. There's just a sense of wanting to have that theater and that sense of experience brought to the customer. That's why we all got into this business. Now, Christmas is the height of that. And, you know, but the other times, you know, we have proven ourselves to be important. At Macy's, it's a flower show or even a welcome back to the customer. At, you know, Louis Vuitton is all of that fabulous window inspirations that you see. You know, that they brought to the forefront. They're so concerned about sustainability. I mean, the trees that are in there today, you can, you know, ours has got, we only bid on that job, but we were very familiar with it. But that's, I think, what's so fantastic about visual merchandising. But today, you know, Anne was kind of asking me, you know, talk about your inspiration, where it's coming from. And of course, I have to kind of bring it back to Christmas. As I said earlier, I love Christmas and I love decorating for brands and, you know, create identity for each of them for different brands, whether high or low, it doesn't matter. I, you know, showed you the tree that we have as a sentimental tree. And then this one behind me is more traditional. We've always had a Christmas tree that was fresh and cut and bought outside. But the last 2 years we've gone to a uh, artificial tree, as I said, with a sigh, because my children actually finally said, listen, this is, we need to be sustainable. And to be very honest with you, I was not that upset going to the basement and getting this thing this year because I didn't have to go and get a tree and carry it with my husband, cut it. And it's always such an ordeal because I want a certain size, he wants to carry it, you know. So it was actually a pleasant experience. But the ornaments that I have on my tree are some are inherited, some are antique, from it's been passed on from generation. But one of my favorite ornaments, and it's not that shiny or glittery, you would think, and glamorous. It's this little, I think it was a napkin holder, and I'll hold it up here. And it was given to me by my mother-in-law because they were made when my husband was maybe 7 or 8. They went to a dude ranch in Arizona or someplace, and so everyone made one in their family. And Bill has his, it'll say Bill Sullivan. And when I joined their family, the first Christmas that I joined, she gave me hers because it says Mrs. William Sullivan on it. And it was sort of her saying to me that I was part of their family. And so for me, it's always meant a lot. So it's not shiny or glittery or anything like that, but it is just a sentimental value to me. And then one of my other favorite pieces is this just really simple nutcracker. It's white and just super clean. And so as you probably saw a little bit of my furniture, I'm very just interested in clean lines. One of my favorite artists is Donald Judd. I'm very inspired by him. Although sometimes when we do windows, it doesn't necessarily end up that way. But anyway, so right now, since I can't go to a lot of galleries, I've kind of gone back to the books that I have in this bookshelf, many of them from when I was a kid to when I went to school. And, I was looking at the Donald Judd pieces and I was thinking the color is so perfect for something. I haven't decided what yet, but I think it would work. Anyone who knows anything about me knows I'm crazy about Wes Anderson, and I'm not. I've left the book. There's a tagline on Instagram called Accidentally Wes Anderson. And it's all of these people, including me, that we take photos of very balanced buildings and things. It could be a cake, it could be a bridge, it could be, just recently I put one up of the firehouse down the street in Tribeca. So, so there's a book out that people went out and took these great photos, and the colors. I mean, if you know Wes Anderson, you know the particular colors he likes. But I like these little books. This illustrations, I think, reminds me of Wes Anderson. There's a series of them. This one is Little Philip of Belgium. And I look at these sometimes and get inspired for Christmas windows, perspective, or, anything like that. I like vintage posters too. I think they're really great. This kind of, I shouldn't say it, but this could be an Hermes window, if you ask me. So I like looking at this stuff, to learn more. This is a new book I just got. It's the Nike Chronicle book. It shows you every basically interesting product that they made. This one is Fly Nike. It's kind of cool. It's their t-shirt. And then the other one is Have a Nike Day. So, if you can't get out now and get to a lot of museums, I think it's kind of nice to revisit some of your old favorites, some of the, if you're in art school or if you're in fashion school or you're at FIT, you're probably looking at a lot of books. Pull out some of your artists that you were inspired by. Obviously, I was inspired by a lot of abstract expressionists, a lot of, like I said, Donald Judd. So I'm kind of pulling that back out and looking. Love the Massimo Vitelli book. It's old, but it's these beautiful photos of people at the beach. And then, but I always like the color of the sky and the beach. He mixes that and makes it that super light blue. Someone even may call it the Martha Stewart blue. I don't know. But what was interesting is I was looking at this book recently and I noticed all these people in this crowd, and I thought to myself, when will we go back to that? Remember when we used to do that? This is another book that I love, Pure Country. This is actually my husband's book. But what I love about it is it's full of color and pattern, which to me is the first inspiration for any window. I know we think a lot about prop making, but obviously we try to really push forward the merchandise. It's really the first rule of any kind of window dressing. But I like going through his book and seeing the patterns and shapes, and again creating window variations in my head. So yeah, so if you can't get out, revisit some of your old books. Obviously, you'll have favorite ornaments and things like that on your tree with your families. It does always bring those sort of objects bring back memories, and that's my father used to say and to us all the time. When we used to go on these trips for holiday or anywhere, and 4 kids in the back of the car all screaming at one another, he would we would all say, why are you making us do this? And he would scream at us, screaming, saying that he was creating memories for all of us, and we were all just not understanding what he was saying. A bunch of kids, 3 brothers and 1 daughter, of course, spoiled daughter, the youngest. And and now I say the same thing, and as our special guest also said, part of creating part of creating, any kind of display, whether it's in your store or in your window, which is, much more glamorous in your mind. It's to create that memory, and then hopefully that will create a return customer, not only because they remember, but also because the memory was pleasant and brings out the nostalgic feeling in you. So hopefully then that will always rekindle that message in their head. So it's really fun. I mean, my father was actually teaching us that years ago in the back of a big sedan, with screaming children. But there you have it. It's always about creating memories. And that's why you have the ornaments that you go back to every year. That's why you have the books that you love that you can revisit. And of course, when things were open, I would visit the galleries and the museums. I did visit the Met this last weekend. It is open again, the Metropolitan Museum, and there's a great show there. Obviously, the fashion show that they always have. They have I forgot the name, about something. I forgot. I have to look it up when we go to questions. But anyway, so, but what I did every year before, Thanksgiving, I always visited the Met, and I always visited the Christmas tree. And their Christmas tree is pretty much the same every year. And they have these angels, and it's usually in this one room where they have a lot of sort of sculptural pieces with this big gate. And this year they didn't put it in that room, which really upset me. It was almost like I needed that comfort to go back to, but I wasn't able to do that because they moved it into this other atrium, much smaller tree and different vibe. And so I think maybe they felt that the socially distanced situation wasn't really doable in the room that they usually have it, and they didn't want to have people gather. So I was thinking about them and why they made those decisions. And I think this is what we are. We are problem solvers, and we figure out how to work around any issue, and look at what we've done with COVID. And that's really what visual merchandising is: creating that memory and problem solve, either for your client or for yourself or for your customer. And I think that becomes, what the visual merchandising job is. All right, I have 5 more minutes. I think I can keep talking, or we can go to questions. What do you guys think?
Well, Roya, if you want to open it up, and we can do the video now and turn it on and start having conversation and let people ask questions that way, if everyone wants to do that. Are you good with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're ready.
Yeah, so what we're going to go ahead and do for the attendees, we're going to go ahead and you're going to get an invite from us where we're basically promoting you, and it gives you the ability to turn on your video so we can all come together. You don't have to turn on your video or be seen if you don't want to, but it's completely optional, but I think it would be fun.
Oh, I see a lot of my friends. I have to put my glasses on. Hi, David, Barry, hi. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Roya.
How are you? Hi,
Hey.
Roya.
This has been fun.
Harry.
Seeing old friends. Oh, wow.
How's
There's
everybody?
Harry, you're growing some facial hair.
Oh,
A little bit.
And Anne, hi, Anne.
It's
I'm
like being
sorry, I was muted. I just want to say, Roya, thank you so much for welcoming us into your home, sharing your recipes, your decorating secrets, and that was just phenomenal. And it was great to have Scott as well. Really, thank you for doing this on behalf of PAVE.
thank you for having us.
Echoing that, absolutely. It was fantastic. Really, really fun. And how's the snow, Roya?
It's good. You can't see today because, like I said, I have scaffolding,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but it is definitely coming down. So, it's fun. We love it. I think all New Yorkers really do love it. So
We got snow here, but not as much as you're getting. We just got like an inch, so nothing like what you have, nothing that much fun.
oh,
Ash, are you gonna show your face?
Yeah, I was doing the changing thing.
Are we ready? Yeah.
I had to do my hair. David understands those problems.
Yes, I do.
And Harry.
And should we tell Roya the truth?
but
Go ahead.
Anne can't cook, but she can bake.
I mean, this is what I was saying. If you can bake, you're good because you're basically a scientist. But I am not a baker at all. I like to just throw a whole bunch of stuff together. And this is why this was so, revolutionary to me, because it just comes in a box, you pour it in the thing, and then it's ready to go. And it looks like you did something. So as Scott said, apparently this is a secret of a lot of moms our age. That's, I guess he was doing the same thing in New Jersey as I was doing in Connecticut. So.
Hi.
Hello. And I haven't seen Anne's better half in a year, so thanks for joining.
Another David.
I know.
So does anyone have any questions for Roya?
I would toast Roya, but I finished my drink already. So cheers with the ice and the remnants.
There's mine over there. I have to go get it. So
I think we have to challenge Roya to remember the name of the exhibition.
oh yeah, it was. I should, right, David? I should know
Yes,
that.
you should.
I'm so sorry. I gotta look it up. Sorry. What was it? About something, right? David, well, why didn't you pipe in or put it in the? There we go. About time, fashion and duration. There you go. Anyway,
Another fun project.
yes.
David was just being shy and reserved.
Yeah, that's my name.
As he does.
Yes, as he does so well.
It's about making other people uncomfortable.
The bad thing about my screen is the four of us that have such long, luxurious hair are all right together on the screen. I think we're trend setting.
Lena's going to offer to do mine.
Hi, everybody.
Hi,
Happy
Lena. Lena, are
holidays.
you upstate?
Hey, Lena.
Hey, Lena.
I'm in LA.
Oh, in LA. Wow.
So no snow for you, just fires.
No, just sunshine.
Sunshine.
50-degree weather.
It's good weather,
Lena.
Shin. Hi, neighbor.
Neighbor.
It's
I do
good in
love
the
seeing
70s
everybody's
here in
holiday.
Los Angeles. Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I do love seeing everybody's holiday decor. I'm sitting in my dressing room, so you see nothing but a wall of closets behind me. I could bring the Hanukkah menorah over if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm missing out on menorah lighting right now, Barry. They're doing the online services with the synagogue, lighting the menorah right now at 7:30. So.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, you've got one more
Christmas in
night.
this room and Hanukkah in the next room. Trying to cover everything.
We cover all bases, exactly.
We're equal opportunity celebrators around here.
I cannot believe the twins are 12, but that's a whole other subject.
We looked the same 12 years ago, Barry.
Absolutely. Right. Just, add a little facial hair because
That was probably not white back then.
I'm always amazed at those of you who do this for a living, especially at store level, that then you bother to come home and decorate your own environments. I find that very inspiring, because all the years of doing December markets, by the time December market was over, I was in no mood to decorate my house.
I know. What a different year. Now we're not able to, go to market, no PAVE, but, I think we're made do. And I think that window awards earlier were, wasn't perfect, but at least we did it. I like that. And I mean, I want to say same thing as Scott, where there was a sense of optimism, hoping that next year as it arrives, and there's, the vaccine, which I know it's not the end all, but that gives people hope. And, it helps people feel more optimistic about going out and being more, visible and shopping. And I think that's great for all of us. And we were talking about PAVE, and I'm 100% sure that we will have a party next year, because I think it'll be a different year by December for sure.
People will be ready.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's wonderful to see the
We already are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no block party in the middle of 25th Street this year, David?
It
We
would be
thought
a
about it.
one. But Roya, I think your statements about inspiration and where we're finding inspiration, and it's funny how I find myself looking at smaller things now. The other day, I ended up walking past a card store, and there aren't that many of them around anymore. And I found myself just spending 45 minutes looking at images, that brought back not only my past, but my future, what was going on. And so I think you were so right on that our sense of what is inspiring us, what is giving us that smirk, that smile, is a lot of small things right now. And that's kind of cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's not going to be these big exhibitions, unfortunately, because we just don't have access to it. But why not go back to something more traditional, like that? And it's like, we're not able to go to movies. I really like going to movies, because if it's anything about cinematography, I want to see it really big. I want to, it's got to encompass. But all this content is now on television, so we're learning to watch differently. And
yeah, which brings us to, will all that content be online going in the future, or are we going to start refilling movie houses and supporting that part of the arts?
And think about Broadway and what we've lost on Broadway in the last year. I mean, that to me is one of the most devastating side effects of this.
I know.
Just,
but I feel it'll come back, Barry. No, I mean,
I totally agree. I'm truly a believer of that. But without getting too personal here, my therapist said to me somewhere a couple of months ago in a session, that's hey Bill. No, one of the things that she said to me was, describe how you're feeling in just a few words. And one of the words, well, no, but one of the, and yes, I'm because you know me as a person of, one word or two. But one of the things that I said was, I am still feeling very grateful, and when you think about, we're all here, we're all healthy, we have a roof over our head, we have food on our table. And when you think about, we're talking global population here of people that don't have that now. And, especially at the time of the holidays, it's just, I'm really grateful for what I have. And sorry if that's like a downer for here, for everybody else, but it just, like David, like you said, it was like, we're focusing on little things, it's little objects or little things that catch your eye, and hopefully little things that make you smile, and little things that you're grateful for. And that's my thought for the day.
Here, Barry. Gratitude.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Let's be thankful for alcohol. No.
So David, can you imagine having lived in Pennsylvania for the first 6 months of this, where state stores were closed? You could not buy alcohol?
No. I would have figured out how to make, no, that's not kidding. I'm not kidding.
I would have moved. Cheers, everybody, and happy holidays.
Cheers. Happy holidays.
Cheers.
Hey, Oscar, can you give me my drink?
I think
my cameraman dropped after the
I think he drank it while you were talking.
Yeah, after scene 3, I had to.
Is this one?
I did have a wardrobe change, but I forgot to do it.
How many of us grew up with our mother saying, "Bring me my drink"?
God, you're so quiet. You're like my second in line.
Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it very much. So I was sitting there having a
I
pretty
used my wardrobe too. But I didn't do it.
Oh, very festive.
Is it moving? Is it doing? Because you know it has animation like the windows. Scott's favorite thing. Can it move?
Guys, I'm joining you from Sydney, Australia. And then
yes.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Carrie. So good to see you.
So good to see you all. Seems such a long time since we've seen you, but I just wanted to say, you know, we are sort of coming out the other side now, and it's just the most amazing thing. You know, to be, especially around Christmas time, to be able to get back out into the stores and, you know, in numbers and, yeah, so there is light at the end of the tunnel.
It's getting used to. I mean, this is probably, I don't know.
Thank you, Carrie.
When things seem to be better.
Yes.
So we
Cheers.
have manicures and they, you know, they take your temperature, they take your phone number for contact tracing.
Do you have enough snow globes there, Joe?
And all of that.
Somebody.
We left there.
That's my partner Paul's snow globe collection.
We were probably safer.
Very cool.
That's beautiful.
So
There's Times Square.
Nora now.
I can't be in New York this year. But want to say hi, Paul?
Happy holidays.
And that's pretty.
I'm off to light the menorah.
And that's
Take care, Harry.
What,
Cheers.
great to see you,
diner-
Harry.
Take care.
Yeah, Harry.
Roya? Hi.
Yeah.
I do have a question. My name's Angela. I'm a student at FIT. So one of my questions is, how do you not get stuck in doing like the same typical holiday windows? Because I feel like it would just be so easy just to like be pushed into like the same categories. But how do you kind of change it up each year?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I mean, this is the ultimate, you know, I'd say challenge to any of us. How many times do you reinvent Valentine's Day? How many times do you reinvent Father's Day? So it isn't just Christmas. It's really any of these events that are, you know, all flowers from Mother's Day. But that's you have to be brave and kind of break the mold, you know, just say, no, we're not using flowers this year for, you know, Mother's Day. We're going to just use color. It's going to be an inspiration, you know, what a mom, you know, stands for. Let's say, is she a hero? Is she a, you know, working mom? Is she, you know, a stay-at-home mom? You know, it's things like that kind of expand on the idea. So yes, it is hard to kind of come up with a different idea each year for Santa Claus or, you know, Santa flying over the moon or over the skyline. But you know, this year, I think it was great because Scott, like he's on and he can talk to it, but, you know, we were inspired by everyday events as things were unfolding around us. So I think something like that for Macy's worked. For Hermes, where we did the windows this year, it was very traditional, you know, sort of a story with the animals in the forest. And then for Tiffany's, it was just a very graphic and, you know, interpretation. So it's just sort of, you just kind of, it is kind of all the same idea, celebration, appreciation, gratitude, but, you know, formalized in different ways. I think that's really what you have to do is just, the message doesn't change because it's about being home. It's about being with your family, sharing love and gratitude. But, you know, how you show it, it's, you know, look at art, look at music. There's just so many different songs and so many different paintings. So that's how we look at it when we think about windows or interior installations or anything like that.
Thank you. Also, my nieces came to visit this year and we took them to go see the Macy's windows and they loved it so much.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
So good to see you, Angela. Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Angela, I think you sent in a couple more questions. Did you want to ask them?
Yes, let me pull them up really quickly.
All right.
Bunch of questions. She's really interested.
Yeah, I didn't want to ask too many questions at once.
Oh, please do. It's great. You have more.
Another question was, what's your favorite part about designing?
So my favorite part is actually the beginning, because there's so many ideas coming in, and I like to kind of have that brainstorming session, and that's like when you're the most creative, and this time Scott and I, at least about Macy's, we just seem to be and since I have my special guest here, I'm going to keep pointing to him. I think we just had a lot of time at home in March, and usually we do it a little earlier, but it just seemed tone deaf to go to some story that didn't have meaning the same way that the ones he decided upon. So I think that I enjoyed those calls, these Teams call, and it was new to me anyway. I never even been on a Teams call or anything like that. And Scott and I would just talk for hours. Like, should we do this? What did you see on your walk? So that to me was my favorite part. The least favorite part is when we install, because all the things that can go wrong, and then you have a very limited time to fix them. So Scott, how about you?
No, I would agree that the inspiration point and the time where you're just collaborating and brainstorming and sharing ideas is always the most fun. But I think really when you lock down that idea and then you continue to, this year in particular, like it was Roy and I, my entire team was furloughed. I didn't have anyone to even bounce ideas off of. So I really relied on Roya and, just one as a friend to keep each other company, and but to share ideas and keep each other encouraged. And that's really where the whole inspiration of our windows this year came. And then I know when Roya said at the end, she hates the details of putting it in, and I'm sure she hates it more because this year, because I was riding her as a client would, because for every detail and every light and every piece of dust and all of that, it's always fun to work with a friend, but it's also challenging because I don't know if I'm taking advantage of our friendship or whatever it is, but being sometimes maybe hypercritical for her. So I'm sure I was a little bit of a pain on that front.
Well, thank you, Scott. It was a hard year. We had to punt. So yeah, no, it was. I mean, I'm sure other retailers will tell you, the decision to make these windows or my other clients, they're was very late. We were producing windows up until we were installing windows after Thanksgiving, and that never happens. I mean, we never ever, at least at Harlequin, we're always kind of done by Thanksgiving because you want people to go shop and enjoy. But other retailers, nothing to do with Macy's, we were still installing all the way to second week of the last week. I was just going to say second week of December, and that would have been last week. So, which is on
something, Roy, you said something earlier that I think we're problem solvers. And I think that, working in retail, like whenever there is an issue, like even the store leadership team, they turn to us to figure it out when it's coming to a store experience. And, this year taught us a lot that we can, figure it out. We can find new ways to work together. Talking about Teams calls, I wouldn't, same thing. I'd never turned on my camera before. We would do it occasionally at work, but I really didn't want to participate that way. I would rather have a real team meeting in person, and it forces you to think outside your box. And I think this year, as challenging it was, and obviously there's a ton of world issues and issues within our country, but it has just made me at least think differently, think introspectively, and challenge myself as well as my team of what can we do. And the way we came out of this and the windows, our stores, I'm super proud of it, and I'm super proud of partners like Roya that I got to work with, and we've all grown from it. And when we do come out of this, we'll be stronger and be able to think faster and differently. And but it all comes back to creativity and figuring out ways to do things.
Thank you. And my last question is, if you were not a window designer, what do you think you would be doing? Like if you had no limitations?
Funny, we used to ask this question a lot when we did those meetings. at my previous job. But I always say this and people say, really? I would like to work for the city of New York and be on whatever committee that is. I don't know if it's even a committee, but it would be called beautification of the city. And I would be in charge of allowing or disallowing signs around the city. I know it sounds very tedious, but all I do is walk around and go, who approved this sign? Why would they allow this font? So, and then I would then find ways to make various blocks look a lot better. So that's what I would do. So I guess more city planning, I say. And other than that, in my retirement, I probably would work in a gallery because I would go back to my first love, painting. So if you're asking that, I would like to get back to that. So good question though.
Thank you.
Well, Roya, we can start to wrap this up. I know we've accomplished, I think, quite a bit. We stayed about 20 minutes after the end of this scheduled chat, and I think everybody enjoyed seeing each other and saying hello.
Absolutely. Thank you all for signing up. We'll see each other in person next year, I promise.
Yeah.
Happy
And
holidays,
thanks
everybody.
again for taking us into your home. And Scott, that was amazing. Thanks for being our guest tonight.
It was awesome.
We really appreciate it.
Time for dinner.
Bye, guys.
Inspiring for our students.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.